Hi again, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. Today I'm going to talk about whether Trump can beat the global elite. So welcome to the show. This is where myself, Craig Hamilton Parker, talks all about the world at large, and I give my thoughts and opinions from a spiritual sort of standpoint. I'm a medium. Those that haven't seen me before, I'm a psychic. I also make a lot of predictions about the future. So if you follow the channel, you'll know that I've made a lot of predictions about these things already. But I want to talk today about the impact and the future of globalism, and to ask perhaps about how can people like Donald Trump, and anyone else for that matter, can thwart these powers of what we see as the global elite. Because the term global elite, it can have many sort of understandings and interpretations. I mean, in the extreme view of these things, people might talk about an Illuminati, people talk about visitors from outer space, reptile people running the world and so forth. But there are definitely, I think with a bit more of a sensible head, there are definitely a lot of individuals or groups of individuals who hold significant economic, political and social influence on very much a global scale. And many of us small guys worry that, our voice can't be heard because a few are determining the path for the many. And these type of people would include, in what I'm talking about, people who have high-ranking politicians, for example, corporate executives, wealthy individuals, influential figures, religious people, and all sorts of other sectors that are part of a small group of people who I believe are steering the course of the world, and I feel that some of these people are steering in a secret sort of way, a clandestine way, and could be hijacking governments. And this is my worry. So recently, we've just had in the news at the moment some interesting reports about the special counsel George Durham's report. Now, those of you in the UK might not have heard the news about this, but this is going back to 2016, when there were accusations made of a collusion with Russia and Trump in particular. And it seems that these big sort of front page reports about that he was tied in with Russia seem to be shown to be flawed completely. The FBI, who raided Trump's place in Florida, as you know, seem to have been manipulated by political forces. So this is pretty dodgy, I think. This is going to raise in the future a lot of questions about whether there were attempts in 2016 to rig the election that failed, and trying to tie Trump to Russia to make him look bad, and this was followed by years and years of attacks on Trump. They've been really out to get him, haven't they? And it seems to be overturning many of the fundamentals of democracy. There are people in the background meddling with the truth and manipulating the media, manipulating the press. And imagine how this could escalate in times to come, now that we have artificial intelligence. Imagine how that can be used to manipulate the media, manipulate what we see when there's electioneering going on, not just in America. This is something that I'm talking about as a worldwide problem that is particularly being seen in America at the moment, isn't it? So I predict this is going to become a huge issue in the future. And, with all the current issues that are surrounding the fact that, even the FBI and other government agencies can be used as political tools is very dangerous. How could AI be used as a political tool? So we're walking on very, very dangerous ground. And this is not just a problem in America. It's a problem in every country in the world. Put some comments, guys. I want to know about your country. I'm going to mention a few countries as we go ahead. But, what's going on in your politics? Are you finding that the voice of the ordinary person cannot be spoken? But I think this is going to be a turning point, and much more will come to light very shortly. In particular, I've said it before, the Hunter Biden laptop. I said at the beginning of this year, this is going to be much bigger than it was earlier in the year. They were hoping it was all going to go away. It was all going to become quiet. But this is a big Pandora's box that's yet to be fully opened, and that I predict there's going to be a lot more to come. How much else has been covered up? What other things have been hidden away? How much has the political system, the jury system, the law system, the FBI been manipulated? The military, even, it can get into everything. Nothing seems to be in the power in the hands of the people anymore. They won't take Trump down. I predict they won't take him down. He's not a man, to be honest, he's not a man I'd call of exemplary good character. And I know a lot of the Trump followers of this channel will sort of reprimand me for that. But he's been pretty bad on lots of things. But then so have all the politicians, really. All of them have sort of dark, shadowy things hidden in the background there, haven't they? But I do feel that Trump is a force that's strong enough to break the stranglehold. Let's face it, he's the only thing Americans have got, because nobody is out there prepared really to truly stand up against the institutional rot, because they know they'll be torn down. They'll be torn to pieces if you stand up for what you feel is what he called the swamp, didn't he? But I predict he will do it. He will find a way. You're not going to see the end of Trump. They're not going to shut him up. They're going to throw more and more and more at him. But he will get through in the end, I feel. And anyway, this is much more than just politics, because a few generally are manipulating the many, these global elite, as we call it, or we think about it as this. For example, the media is an international organization now. It's international news. It's all over the world. But surely, how can't we see how much this has been compromised by political ideas? I mean, you see it in America, but here in the UK, the BBC has been massively compromised by political thinking. It's tick box inclusiveness, for example. We see it in adverts as well. And this is kind of another subtle form of manipulation, all under the guise of doing something very liberal and very good for mankind. It's the nanny state sort of thing. It's the I know best, and you'll have to take my ideas as being the best, And I think whole nations have been compromised. The whole national identity of many countries is being compromised by these ideas that are floating around in the background, and I believe being steered very subtly by some very dangerous forces who have their own self-interest at heart. Right. So my thoughts are that there are many global forces at work, and they're looking for their own self-interest, basically. And we have a lot of these problems here in the UK, for example. Now, the global elite, as we might call them, were horrified by Brexit because this broke away from all the traditional ways of manipulating the commercial world in particular. It was all very nice and easy to manage everything under the guise of rules and regulations that didn't give anybody their actual voice. The British people got fed up with it. But now there's other things are coming to light. When this actually happened, there was a big campaign here in the UK. I don't know if you remember, if you put your thoughts back to the time of Brexit, but there was a big campaign that it was being backed by Russia, that Russians were wanting this Brexit thing. It was Putin was behind it. He wanted this because this would bring the downfall of Europe and it would bring the downfall of the UK. But it wasn't the case. This smear campaign has recently been exposed, but it's not getting a lot of exposure in the press. But if you look at some of the stuff that's out there of people talking about this, there is definitely been an exposure just almost simultaneously to what's happening in America there. People start to put two and two together. Russia has been blamed for an awful lot. It's very easy. Because there's a war in Ukraine, we can blame Russia for everything. They're behind this, they're behind that. But actually, it's nothing to do much with Russia. It's actually the forces of the global elite wanting to keep us all in their pockets, as it were, because there's a lot of money to be made out of this and a lot of power and influence made out of these people. Even Rishi Sunak and others in the Tory party at the moment are trying to water down Brexit, and the Labour Party doing the same. They're all wanting to water down Brexit and start to get back to where we were. These global influences are back with a vengeance. So I question where these global influences are really coming from. I think they're probably led by China because they're the dominant global clandestine sort of influencer today, aren't they? And they're behind much of this, I believe. Canada's been compromised too. I mean, look at Trudeau, the number of people that seem to dislike Trudeau, and yet he stays in power. And there's a lot being revealed in the Canadian press about Trudeau's being in the pockets of China. And again, this was something I spoke about a lot before and predicted. And really, he should be out of power long ago. But there are hidden forces keeping him in power and manipulative forces that really, it's not just a matter of forcefully keeping him in power. It's about influence. It's about the powerful influence that people can have over society, over the media in particular. People can be fooled sometimes by just you tell someone a lie long enough and they believe it to be true. So it's surely, to me, it's self-evident that there are forces at work that put people in power and move heaven and earth to keep others out. And it's not the will of the people. And this is, I think, very dangerous. This is a global problem. And I think worldwide, we really do have to start thinking about how we can get power back to those that should have it. That's us, the ordinary person. And there's a lot of dangers in the way. We blame often individuals behind these influences. People talk about, what's his name, Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, who had Al Gore, Soros, all those sort of people. And it's quite easy to sort of point to them and say, they're the ones, that's them, it's them, it's them. But it's bigger than that. It's because society itself is sick. And it's easy when a society is sick to manipulate weak people. We've been weakened, I think. It's our fault. It's our fault. We've all been weakened. We've all been weakened perhaps by having too much for too long. It's all been easy, we don't have to, everything's instant. We can get our takeaway food, we can have it instantly. We watch television, we can watch the movie we like instantly. We get frustrated if we don't get what we want now. In fact, we can get delivery within an hour with something, so we don't even have to walk to the shops, and this has made us all weak. And I think this weakness is particularly epitomized in people like Prince Harry, bleating about having had a tough time in his life, and yet he still craves for a life of privilege and wealth at any price too. He'll sell his family out for it. I think Dr. Faust kind of springs to mind. A lot of people have done a deal with the devil and they don't care about the world out there at large. So it's self, isn't it? It's a very, very selfish, horrifyingly frightening society in that respect. And this weakness, this is the weakness, this is the malady of the society. And people and the powers that be can take advantage of this weakness of mind, personally. And I'm sounding like an old bloody fogey now, but many of the young today, and God, people used to moan about us when we were young, but they are weak. Perhaps it's caused by a kind of an unrealistic view of the world that's been shaped by perhaps being overexposed to the internet too much, and they've got no real experience of real life. They don't have proper social interactions. You can't do all this through screens. You have to meet people. You have to go into the world and find that sometimes it's a tough and difficult place. And it's not all about you. It's about interactions. It's about all of us. And also, I think there's been a lot has happened. This pandemic's a long way behind us now. But I think similarly, that there's a lot of discontent that arose in society due to the isolation that came out of the pandemic. And that was then redirected. That frustration was kind of used again, just pushed in the right direction. And just after the pandemic, we got the beginnings of the Me Too movement and the Black Lives Matter movements. And to me, I think these were pointing towards kind of neurotic changes in society. They were coming from the point of view where everybody was frustrated and frightened and scared, and you had to have something to put your focus on. And this seemed a good cause. This seemed some way to go forward, but it's kind of gone into a weirdness, because now boys want to be girls and vice versa, and girls want to be boys, vice versa. History too seems to have to be rewritten now. We have to exclude any of the triumphs of Anglo-Saxon people. So the forces that I think are arising are not only stitching up the present, but we're also stitching up the past too. And this seems to me to be the spirit of the age. This seems to be the way things seem to be wanting to go at the moment. And frankly, I think it's a bit scary. But the silent majority are not fools. I'm talking about perhaps what we see on the media, what we see being thrust down our throat from the advertisers and the politicians and the social media manipulators. These people are sitting back and thinking, this is a lot of nonsense, what's going on here. There's a lot of people feeling very frustrated by all that's going on, in the USA and here in the UK. People think the same in Australia, getting the same rubbish thrown at you. And in Canada, we're thinking, just a minute, there's something going on here in the background that's, it's not right. We're not all mugs. And I think the arrogance of these global forces that are trying to secretly shape the world will be overturned, and they'll be overturned by people like you and me, ultimately, but it does take a few strong people to lead the change. You have to have your flag carriers, but it will happen. And I think Trump's one of them, frankly. I love him or hate him. I mean, who else is there? Are there many others that are really prepared to force change? They got rid of Boris Johnson. That was another stitch up, I think, here. Definitely. They made such a big deal out of all what went on in the parties and things in the House of Commons. And they were wrong. Yeah, that's true. But that was our excuse to push them out the door. Let's get back to where we were, and we were in control, and we like to be in control again. But it does need some strong people. But I do think we will see a reversal and perhaps a return to what I would call the power of the sensible majority. It seems crazy, all this stuff. I mean, gender fluidity and all that, God knows what that is. I think it must stain. Anyway, thoughts at the end. The world is full of control freaks, isn't it? That, I think, is part of the problem. We see it in our own lives too. People with poisonous thoughts, most people are fine. Most people in the world are lovely, but you get one or two, don't you? And why is it a few always seem to want to take it all? There's so much sort of hidden greed, hidden vindictiveness, hidden envy, secret jealousies towards others, and even jealousies, particularly towards people that are happy. Don't buy my book, Be Happy, because you'll have all sorts of enemies if you start being happy. Don't buy it. Don't, no. But it's the case, isn't it? Even happiness is the one thing that people really love to destroy. There seems to be a desire. I'm talking now about around the world, us now, not just the globalism, but those people around us now. There seems to be a desire in a few people to pull all that is good into the same pit of human excrement that they've made out of their own lives, and they're often people with dark, depressive forces working in them. They just want to overwhelm the light, but it won't happen. The light always comes back. The strong always comes back. It happens so much in our personal lives. It happens in the world at large. It's everywhere. It's seeped in everywhere. This is perhaps the power of the shadow of what we call the great yuga of Kali Yuga, which we're just coming out of it. This is the time of darkness. Many of us believe we're coming out of the Kali Yuga. And as we go into the newer age, the light begins to dominate. The power of people of good character, I feel, will grow. And all those with the selfish and controlling dispositions will gradually weaken. But as we're coming out of it, it's the last sort of death throngs of the evil in people. I think we will enter a brighter, a new age. And that will come because we have to brighten our own inner light. In fact, the light always shines brightest in the darkest places. So coming out of this, I want to say we should all harbor warm, amber thoughts for a sunny and happy future. For eventually, the good people of good heart, people of good character, they will eventually steer the world. It will happen. It seems awful at the moment when we see everything being torn down around us. All what we kind of value seems to be overturned, but it will come back. And I do predict that, with the help of, various people who have great strength, and also coming into this world, we're going to see some very highly evolved spiritual people. That's going to help the world too. Healing is coming. Mark my words, healing is coming. This world will find its way back to a more sensible and certainly a more spiritual way. But there are many things we got to address. Things like artificial intelligence, things like globalism, things like corruption in politics, things like the media, things like the hijacking of movements like Me Too and Black Lives Matter. Once those things are sorted, then we can start to breathe free again, and a sensible world can come back, I hope. Anyway, thank you very much. And I hope you've enjoyed listening to me today. I'm getting croaky now. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me today. If you like it, please do subscribe and give it a like and put a comment, because, what do you think about these things I've been talking about? What's the thing that most rubs you up the wrong way about the way the world is today? Excluding, political, yes, but what really gets to you? What is really annoys you the most? Put it in the comments and have a vent as well. And if you'd like to know more, of course, read my books, but don't read Be Happy, because if you're happy, like I say, you'll attract all sorts of negative forces. Okay, thanks for joining me. See you next time. Bye for now. Well, my latest book is called Be Happy. This is all about my trip to India, particularly to see Sharavana Baba and some of the extraordinary things I discovered there. But it's also a bit of an adventure story as well, because it tells the story of how the Indian oracle, the Nadi, showed me how to save the life of my grandson. So it's a very poignant and very important book to me. And I think you'll enjoy the kind of spiritual adventure of it in some ways, and also some of the uplifting stuff about how to be happy in this somewhat unpleasant world sometimes. So it's quite a hopeful book. It's a book that I think you can learn a lot from if you're into the spiritual path.